So, good morning, everybody. I hope you hear me well. Welcome to this webinar session on engagement. Today we have Alberto Guevara with us. We'll be presenting and moderating the session. As some of you know, Alberto is the coordinator of the Master of Science in Marketing at UPF-Barcelona School of Management. And today he will share with us how brands are taking advantage of engagement and how they are managing to get their audiences engaged in the first place, going from funny videos to AR filters. Having said that, and before passing the floor to Alberto, I wanted to say that we have enabled a Q&A box where you can ask any questions to the speakers. I would ask you to use the box to ask your questions, not the chat. And then, if you want to introduce yourself to the rest of the attendees, you can do it in the chats, but please click on send to all panelists and speakers, because if you don't select this option, not everybody will receive your message. So, having said that, and with no further delay, I will let you hear what Alberto has to share with us. Thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoy the session.
Thank you, Maria. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's seminar. As Maria said, I'm going to be talking about engagement. So let's begin with. So you cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him discover it himself. That's what Galileo Galilei said. And today, as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about engagement. And I name it like the magic word, because it's the thing that we are going to see throughout the webinar that most of the brands are looking for on internet. Okay, so who am I? So as Maria said, I'm Alberto Lempira, and I'm an intelligent and handsome man, according to my mom. But jokes aside, I'm the academic coordinator of the Master of Science in Marketing of the UPF Barcelona School of Management. I am also a marketing consultant. I have a background in production engineering, and right now I am pursuing a PhD in business. But most important thing of all is that I am very passionate about marketing, communication, and science. Okay, so what can we expect from these webinars? So we're going to see and talk about the what, the how, and why we should be aiming to generate more engagement with our audience. Okay, so you will also have a 3 ingredients recipe for engaging content at the end of the webinar. And in the meantime, I wanted to share just a few. This webinar is about engagement, so I must walk the talk. And this is just a cool filter that you can use. So you feel free to snap this QR code with your smartphones while you listen to the webinar. If you do share some things online, please, I would appreciate if you use any of the following hashtags that we use. Also, you can mention the BSM or myself if you want to get noticed by us. So first thing of all, what is engagement? So we know that engagement has very different ways and forms to be displayed on social media, especially on social media, right? But if we look the definition on the dictionary, we can find something like this. Like, according to Merriam-Webster, is the act of engaging or the state of being engaged. Not so self-explanatory, right? So let's see what engage is. So engage is being greatly interested and committed. So if we go back to the definition of engagement, we can say that, okay, being engaged is being greatly interested, right? So for example, I am very interested about things like, I don't know, ice cream, planes, and dogs. So that kind of things that I'm interested in may end up in having some kind of likes, comments, followers, views, or shares, right? But hold on a second then. So going back to the definition of engagement, probably is more like being greatly interested in something to take any action, as I mentioned before, okay? So coming back to the things I like. So I love ice cream. I really do. So probably I would be very, very engaged with a post like this one from Haagen-Dazs. Or I don't know, maybe this one looks like a very decadent kind of ice cream, right? But the thing here is that you have some other options. So We have here, this is another company, this is another brand, Ben and Jerry's. You may know him or know them. In this case, they post a lot of things. They post about their products, but they also post about some things else, like, I don't know, joint ventures that they have, social issues, and so forth. So at the very end, they have very different kind of profiles online. I mean, this is just the example of Instagram, but it replicates on all their social platforms. Okay, so again, going back to the definition of engagement, we should probably say that it's being greatly interested in something because it's meaningful enough to take any action. And I think that's going to be the definition I want to live by from now on. So, how do we measure engagement? I mean, we can only be sure about the things that this is not like a dogma. We should be able to measure this to believe in it, right? So as I mentioned before, likes, comments, followers, views, shares, all that kind of things can be measured. So maybe how many likes, comments length, I don't know, the followers count, the percentage of views if you have a video, or the amount of shares. So which one of those should we measure? Well, it depends. It depends on the goal, in the medium, and also in the type of content. So we're going to take a look a little bit further into that. So at the end of the day, we will have a audience, content, and a desired outcome that, is the combination, is the addition of all of these three elements that are going to help us to create engaging content. So let's talk about what is important on social media. So in social media, we have to look for reach, interactions, and replication, right? We need to reach as many people as possible, make them or provoke some kind of interaction, and for them to replicate our message. At the end of the day, we're looking just to have an impact, right? So the thing that I want to do right now, as I mentioned, I should be doing walk the talk. I want to ask you, do you remember the last post you like on social media? I have enabled a poll so you can vote on that. So I'm just going to leave a few seconds for you to vote. So currently 69% of the attendees do not remember the last post they like, versus 31% that do. So if I ask, and if I change the question, and I rephrase it into, do you remember the last post you commented on, or you shared on DM messages, or reposted? Probably the more engaged you were with the content, the more you're going to remember it. Okay, so at the end of the day, what we have is that not necessarily more likes or more comments or more followers does not equal, as a matter of fact, as more engagement, right? So moving forward. So what is important on a website? So on a website, we are looking for visitors, session duration, and conversion rate, right? But at the end of the day, what we want to do is to increase and leverage on our online footprint. So here's a clear example of that. So let's imagine that I have Carl. Carl goes to my website, then he really likes what he sees, and he gets what he needed. After that, he ends up spreading the word by sharing things on social media, by leaving a review, whatever. So at the end of the day, he's helping me to reach out more people, spreading my message and replicating the things that, the message that I conveyed to him at the first place. Okay. So how are companies right now promoting engagement? So let's take a look at a few different examples. So they are listening actively. So what is the goal of this? We have to understand, support, and exploit uh, what have been said by the audience online. Why? Because we have to take advantage of the situation. Just an example of this. So this is a tweet from Kim Kardashian. So she tweeted, "Hey, Jack in the Box, I have a serious complaint, but I won't fully put it on blast. Check your corporate email inbox or send me a DM with direct person for my team to contact pronto." So this was a tweet from Kim Kardashian, which, as you may know, has a lot of followers online, a lot of eyes, paying attention to what she's saying, and she's mentioning a fast food restaurant chain, which is Jack in the Box in the United States. So here are a few of the reactions of some other brands, like Burger King said, Jack in the Box, go to the principal office. So take a look at the amount of reactions, the likes, the retweets, and the replies. But they were not alone. So Wendy's tweeted, but like, who even goes there? Again, take a look at the reactions and the engagement on those posts. Steakom said, Kim, why are you going to Jack in the Box? LOL. Again, take a look at the reaction. Hooter says, not a good day to be Jack. And another example, Shashak said, well, just tweeted a tweet with the popping eyes. So as you can see here, a lot of companies, a lot of brands that were not involved in the conversation at the beginning, leveraged to grab attention to their own through being actively listening in this case. So another way of doing this is by teasing or generating some kind of fascination in the audience. So what is the goal here? The goal is to generate some intrigue, to grab attention, and to generate some kind of buzz in the audience. So why should we look for this? Because we want to confound expectations. This is the main reason why we have so many expectations about going to Disney World and not so much about purchasing a dishwasher product, right? This is something that Johann Berger talks about in his Contagious book. Throughout the webinar, I'm going to be recommending some books that I highly recommend if you want to go deep into some of the things. Some have to do with marketing, some others with communications. Okay, so moving forward, I don't know if this picture makes any sense for you, or do you remember this act from somewhere? But last year, we got an account, a post on Instagram that got the world record of the most liked content online ever. So they managed to get over 50 million likes on Instagram on the account World Record Egg. So at the end of the day, this was a tease campaign for an organization that wanted to talk about and promote the social talk about pressure in social media and how that can affect people. So at the end of the day, they got, I mean, this was like the launch campaign for the organization, and it got announced. I mean, it was nobody knew what this act was about, and it got a lot of promotion and a lot of free publicity. So again, this is a clever way. I mean, this is one in a million case, but we can have this as an inspiration to replicate that in a smaller scale, right? So moving forward, what about funny content? What is the goal of having funny content? I mean, the main goal is to distract, to gladden people, and to get closer to them. And why? Because 44%, according to Statista, of people who goes online to kill time, and 37% people go online to find funny content. Okay, so and also there's another thing that you have to keep in mind, and that's the baby smile effect. This is something that Dale Carnegie talked about in his very famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the thing is that no matter how bad your day is, if a baby gets in your way, a cute baby, and smiles at you, your day is going to be much more better. And this is what you have to aim to when you are a company or a brand. So here's an example. So this is an example from the NFL account on TikTok. So talking about embracing pop culture, right? So this kind of content has probably not so much to do about the main things that they want to communicate, but it's the best way, or one of the best ways, to get to the audience, especially younger generations, right? So here's a fact that you have to keep in mind. 90% of internet users watch videos online. So keep an eye on that and think about how can you generate that kind of content. So another thing that brands can do also, it's being opportunistic. And I don't mean that in a bad way, okay? So what is the goal here? It's just to take advantage of the situation, to surf the wave, and to join the conversation. And why should we join the conversation? Because we should join and lead the tribe, do not manipulate it. And this is something that Seth Godin speaks about in This is Marketing. You can be seen until you learn to see book. He talks about shared interests, shared goals, and shared language, and how this connects people with brands. And just a few examples of these being implemented. So this is a post from the BuzzFeed Tasty account. As you, I mean, they try to leverage on the thing about coronavirus, people, I mean, religion with the Passover and so forth. So obviously they try to mix different words and make them surround the center topic of the account, which is, I mean, food, delicious food, and incredible recipes, right? Another example, this in this case, this comes from Netflix, and again, the COVID-19 situation, and how they partner with different actors and actresses to just give content for people that has been a little bit stressed out about this social distancing and isolation. I mean, this is going to be, at the end of the day, is going to resonate in part of their audience. And we just a few days ago, 2 days ago, on Tuesday, we saw another example of how can brands be opportunistic about these things. So Black Cow Tuesday was a movement or an action of protest brought by the music industry that people like Apple got to leverage on, and that by the end of that day, by the end of Tuesday, generated over 26 million posts on Instagram alone. So again, so you have here a very, very clever way to, I mean, join the tribe and the conversation and to lead it by being part of it. So another fact to keep in mind is that there are 3.8 billion users on social media worldwide. So a lot of people, more than half the worldwide population is on social media. Moving forward, another thing that a lot of companies are doing is regarding community, working on a community level. So what is the goal here? To have a direct dialogue, to get support from customers, not to them, and to get to know them better, okay? So why are we doing this? Because we need to grow the followers relationship around trust. And this is something that Dave Kerpen explains very well on Likeable Social Media. He just published a new edition of that book, which has been like a reference book for myself since 2011. And a few examples of this, we have here Condé Nast Traveler. So they created this group on Facebook for women who travel alone. So this is just for a very specific audience that has very specific needs. And what better way to do or to create content for them than using themselves as a source of inspiration. And we also have another, it's kind of the same approach from Peloton. Peloton has these moms that wants to stay healthy, be in shape, do some exercise, and it's just a source of motivation and support for all their audience. So here are just some other examples. This is the hashtag Team Pixel, and the same for the hashtag Shot an iPhone. This is just a way to create community in a more open way. If you have a Google Pixel phone, or you have an iPhone, you can just upload pictures with those hashtags. You can do it if you don't have either of those smartphone, but it doesn't make sense. You wouldn't be doing that, right? For your post to be posted and shared a space along with some other people like you that has your own device, your same device, and that share the same kind of interest and passion about photography or another fact to keep in mind, 40% of internet users go online to connect with others. So we are the human being is a very social being, right? So keep in mind that also. So let's talk about user-generated content. User-generated content, what is the goal of this? I mean, to bring some level of ownership to their audience, to generate inclusion, and to have a collaborative approach. And why is that? Because involved customers are engaged ones. And this is something the Philip Kotler covers very well on his Marketing 4.0 book that I would also recommend if you want to look into how to go from traditional to digital marketing. And just a few examples. So this is Starbucks. So Starbucks last year, well, in 2018, as a matter of fact, they had this AR filter that if you had one of the special edition cups from the coffee shop, you could just fire up the filter and you get these animations surrounding it. So they just trying to expand the experience to make it even richer, right? To enrich that experience. And this is just another example from Gucci. I mean, this kind of technology has been improving year after year. At the end of the day, you have to work with the novelty of it, because at the beginning, I mean, AR filters were kind of a cool thing, and right now we need more and more sophisticated things to be impressed. So at the beginning, this was very impressive, and therefore people were willing to share that kind of content online. So there is another, I mean, there are multiple kind of user-generated content online, but this one is from, I mean, let's talk about challenges, right? So challenges are a huge thing right now. So this video, I mean, this is part of a campaign called Show Me Your Wallet that was introduced by Chase, which is a bank in the United States, and has to do with the thing of social distancing, the class of 2020 not being able to have a commencement ceremony, and had millions and millions of content, I mean, of videos posted by not only by regular people, but also a lot of famous and celebrities got involved into it. And this is just another example of the same on TikTok for launching the movie, the latest movie on the US last month. They created the Scooby-Doo dance challenge that has some kind of AR filter also included that, I mean, was kind of cool and that helped to, I mean, to make it more engaging, right? So another fact to keep in mind is 40% of people will share posts from other users, and 14% will share posts from brands. You may think, okay, this is a very small number, but that accounts for over 532 million people, which is a lot of people online. Okay, so keep an eye on that. And finally, one of the other ways companies and brands are trying to engage their audiences is through chatbots. So the goal here is, I mean, to be convenient for the user, to improve the response time from the company, and to reduce the workload that the company may have, especially the support team, right? And why is that? Because the customer frustration is your worst enemy. And here are just two examples. This one is very cool. This was from sneakers, and they were I mean, promoting Nike sneakers. They mixed chatbots through Facebook Messenger with AR features just to make it more enriched and more engaging. At the end of the day, if you wanted to purchase something, you got, I mean, you as you can see, you got like a few different pictures and 3D models of the sneaker that help you to unlock the deal for that specific product. Okay, another example, which is less funny, if you may, but I think it's very useful. It's from Wobot, which is a platform where you can chat with a I don't know, it's kind of it's not a therapist. It's just a robot that a chatbot that help you to keep track of your emotions, so that you can be aware of what you have been going so far. So they say that this works very well for helping you with anxiety, especially if you cannot have the time to keep a journal about what you do on a day-to-day day. Okay, so finally, just we have to be relatable. Okay, so we have to fit in, enjoy, I understand the pop culture, and get shareable content. because we want to humanize brands and people wants to be involved with them. And this is something that Donald Miller covers on Building a Story Brand book. And the best and most sublime example of this is Burger King tweet that not only talked about, embrace the meme about 2020 being a very tough year with everything that has been going so far, but also take leverage on a previous campaign from the Organic Whopper that was very successful at the beginning of the year, at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. So why should we thrive for our audience engagement? So we need to be memorable, relatable, and useful. Okay, because that way we are going to keep in the top of mind of our audience. And the 3 ingredients recipe for creating engagement content, it's very easy. You have the first ingredient is going to be assertiveness. So no one wants to hear about how cool you are right there when their dog has died, right? So you have to be very careful. And right now, these critical times we're living on are the best example. There are so many things happening in the world that we need to be careful about what we say and how we say it, right? So the second ingredient is to be down to earth. So even if you're very inspirational, you have to make it as real as possible, because the days of very kind of fiction-like stories for marketing, especially for marketing, are far behind. So we have to we have to bring a connection into the real world for our audience. And finally, the third ingredient is to add value. Value could be a laugh, a thought, an idea, a reflection, or an escape. It doesn't have to be necessarily 100% useful in the sense of, academic content. It could be just something that makes people forget about the problems. And that way it's going to be more engaging for everyone else. So I wanted to thank everybody. So before opening for any questions, I want to pop up the first one. And this is to which kind of content would you be more engaged? To a regular post, to a story, to an AR filter, or to a challenge? Just feel free to vote, just to share with the rest of the audience your thoughts. And in the meantime, I just wanted to thank you for your time, and please do not forget to keep in touch. You can always find me as at Alberto Lempira, which is my handle in every social media, and hope that you like this webinar. So I'm open for any questions, should there be any. Okay, so I have one question from Carolina that says, how do we link engagement with influencer marketing? So this is a very interesting question. And this is, as a matter of fact, is the main thing that you have to look for when you do an influencer marketing campaign. You have to look for how the engagement was with the content that they shared. So influencer marketing, you can do many things. You can do like a promoted post. You can do videos. You can do reviews or whatever. At the end of the day, you have to take a look at how many people and how engaged were the audience to those kind of contents. And at the end of the day, if you want to think about ROI, you need to see how many people, how much traffic did those actions send to your website, send to your e-commerce, send to your profile, because you need to measure the performance of that campaign. So you have to think about different things. The comments, what in the past was named the sentiment of the comments, which is what are people really meaning about what they say, and just have a clear pathway between those kind of those content that the influencer posted and your main goal. just if you wanted to get more attention, if you wanted to gain followers, if you wanted to gain new customers, just have a clear track of that. So very interesting question. So I don't know if there's any other question. So regarding the last question, so 47% said that they would be more engaged to a story. So that's the first one, 42% to post, and only 11% to challenge. So very interesting though. AR filters didn't receive any vote. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on these kind of things, because the younger generations are more lean towards using that kind of content to be engaging with their audience. Okay, so I have another question from Guillermo, who says, it seems that these type of activities are very focused on modern or young targeted companies. How can traditional companies or companies addressed to other senior profiles be innovative? And what if their users are not that much into social media? So this is very interesting. So you have to understand, this is the first, I mean, it was one of the first thing that I mentioned. You have to understand your goal, the medium, and the type of content. So probably if you have a more senior kind of audience, you have to understand where that audience is located. I mean, what kind of content are they consuming? I don't know. Are they just reading newspapers? Are they just reading magazines? Do they watch TV, etc.? So obviously, engagement, it's something that has been, I mean, we have always been able to talk about engagement on marketing, but as digital marketing started to grow, more and more people, I mean, it was easier for us to just focus on the things that we can track. So it's more difficult to measure the engagement on radio shows or on TV spots, right? Nevertheless, you can always do you can become creative. So I'm just going to give an example, a very artisan kind of example. So let's say that you have a very senior kind of audience, and you sell physical products. What you can do, if you want to measure the engagement of your campaign and more like the ROI and the performance of a campaign, it could be a communication or any kind of campaign, you can do a cross-tracking action. You can do, I mean, let's just say that you publish something on the newspaper, and that you say, if you cut this ad out and you bring it to the store, you're going to get, I don't know, a gift, a discount, a whatever. Okay, so that way you can just kind of measure that that performance. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to understand how engagement can be measured. And oftentimes in the past, one of the ways you could measure the level of engagement that people had with your with your brand or with any action that you did in the past was through doing surveys and focus groups, just to understand how much of an impact do you have or did you have on the audience. I have another question from Alba, who says, do you think brands that communicate better their values and purpose can have more engagement with their audience than other brands that you don't know what they stand for? Totally. And this is, I mean, we live in very critical times. Last night, a lot of people, last night, no, 2 days ago, Wendy's, which is a fast food restaurant chain in the United States, became a trending topic because of the news that they supported Donald Trump's campaign. And that angered a lot of people. But on the other side, there were another group of people that were very happy of that. And this is something that you have to be very careful about. I mean, we have very, very clear examples in the past, and Nike, Adidas, we have Apple, we have, I mean, many brands that have made a statement about very critical issues. The thing here is that you have to understand the risk. Even if you want to, for example, if you are not going to endorse a candidate, for example, if you go into politics, you have to understand that probably there's going to be a part of the audience, of your audience, that is going is not going to be is not going to agree with that statement that you're doing and you're making. And I mean, this is just the risk. But if you take a look at the past and the history of the brands that has done that kind of things, at the end of the day, ends up very well for them, because they get the rejection from a lot of people that do not agree with that kind of statements, but also the ones that are that do that. I mean, that they are very agree, that they agree with the kind of statements, become more engaged with the audience. I mean, if I'm up for, I don't know, adoption of dogs that are abandoned, uh, probably I'm going to be more engaged with a company that support that same kind of issues, right? Because I mean, we have a shared thought, a shared values. Okay, so totally, Alba. The clearer you are to your audience, the more engaged you're going to have your audience with. But with that being said, if you don't say anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have that much of engagement, but you're going to be, in times like this, it's going to be difficult for you to come on stage because you don't have nothing to say either way. I mean, if it's for the COVID-19, if it's for racism, if it's for female rights, women's rights, whatever, if you don't say anything, when the discussion and the conversation surrounds that kind of topics, it's going to be more difficult for you to come on stage, because you are not going to add any value. And again, remember that you have to be assertive. So if you do not, I mean, if you don't want to participate in the conversation, sometimes it's the best way of saying anything is by saying nothing at all. And this applies a lot for brands in critical times. So another question from Guillermo. So I saw your examples were mainly focused on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. It's clearly the end of Facebook. So no, I did had some examples from Facebook groups. So Facebook, I think I mean, this is my personal opinion. I might be wrong, but I think that the twist that is going to have is going to take Facebook. And last year, Mark Zuckerberg talks about Facebook being lean and having a shift towards a more private kind of network, are these kind of niche communities. I mean, those groups, the groups from Condé Nast Traveler and from Peloton, and there are many groups, are closed groups, and if you want to be a part of those groups, I mean, it's like a private club. You have to, I mean, fulfill some kind of requirements, and I mean, they don't allow everybody, even when they are really open. And I think that is going to be the best thing in the future for Facebook, because if you take a look at the numbers, Facebook groups have been a great source of engagement and content generation for a lot of brands. So in that case, I wouldn't say that is going to be the end. I'm just saying that probably it's going to shift over being a mainstream for publication of everything to being more kind of a private social network. I mean, just to have with the people you trust the most. Okay, me myself, I don't consider myself a heavy Facebook user, but I do have, and I do participate in Facebook groups, and that could be the thing. I mean, if you take a look at other social networks like Pinterest, so nobody's questioning the future of Pinterest, because they serve their purpose, right? And so I think that could be the same for Facebook. And I think that that's what happened with Snapchat. As a matter of fact, you have Snapchat. You may say, especially here in Spain, that, okay, this is a just dead network. But if you look into France, there's still a very engaged audience there, and the UK and obviously the US. So being a niche doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't necessarily mean something bad for social network. But we are just used to see these huge names like Facebook, Google, Instagram by the time, and right now WhatsApp. So when we see some kind of social network that is like waning, we start thinking, okay, this would be the end. I don't think it's going to be the end. I mean, they have a lot of a huge structure behind them to support it. Okay. So, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't notice. I have some questions on the chat. So, could you tell me more about the Burger King campaign? Why was so successful? Says, okay. So, I don't know if you're Maria. I don't know if you are referring to the campaign from the organic Whopper, but okay, yeah. So, it just generated a lot of buzz because what they did was to portray how their burgers are going to decompose like regular and normal and natural food should do, instead of what the competition, in this case McDonald's, they don't decompose the same way. So this it was a very hard image to portray, like a very moldy hamburger, and this was one of the things that generated the most buzz. And which are the behaviors consumers want to for brands on social media? Honestly, political correct. It depends on the audience you have. So if you take a look at Wendy's, and if you take a look at Adidas, as another example, Adidas approach on same-sex marriage and gay rights, they have been very upfront onto defending that, and there are a few examples of how they have managed people just pointing the fingers at them because they have been supporting that kind of thing. So they are not politically correct. So it totally depends on your audience. Okay. And I have another question from Jorge, who says, what do you think is the social network that is creating more engagement amongst youngsters, and why? I think right now, TikTok, where it's present, has a lot of traction. And I think because it's just a way of escape. And before TikTok, and this is something that came up in one of my classes with one of my students, and we were discussing this. With TikTok, you get to create more creative and more produced kind of videos than on any other social network. So you're given, it's like Apple. If you take a look at Apple, why is Apple such a successful operating system? I'm not talking about the products, the operating system, because they managed to give a lot of power to the user. And I think this is what TikTok is doing so far. And if you take a look at the numbers, especially in Gen Z and younger, it's like crazy. The amount of videos they like, the amount of people and the amount of interaction they have, it's very incredible. And I would say that right now is the golden hour for Instagram, because you get the combination of young people that they are not so much into it because they migrated to TikTok. But you also have some people with, you have millennials for sure, and then you have some Gen X also being on the network. So you have a very diverse kind of audience there. So, this is just an additional thought on that, okay? So I don't know if there's any other question. I hope to have answered all of your questions. Sure thing. Thank you, Guillermo. Yeah, I hope that you have found this useful. So I think there's no any other questions so far. So thank you again for your time.
So, Alberto, thanks a lot for this session. I found it very interesting. I liked it a lot, and I was really surprised by the huge amount of social media users that we have. If you think about the amount of population you have in the world, it's kind of obvious, but to be honest, I had never thought about it, and I had never thought about how big your potential audience can be, which means that you have to be really careful and take in account a lot of inputs that I had never thought about. So thanks for that. And to all the participants, just to let you know that if you're interested in these topics, the UPF Barcelona School of Management offers several masters in marketing, like the Master of Science in Marketing, the Master in Direct and Digital Marketing, or the Master in Marketing. And then next week we will have again new webinars. As usual, we will hold them at 10 in the morning, though they will be in Spanish. You can connect by using our agenda. One of them will be on marketing and sustainability, which will be on June 11. And you will find it as usually in our news panel. So you can connect by using the same links that we always post. Thanks a lot for having attended this session, and I hope I will see you soon in another of our webinars. So have a nice day ahead. See you soon.